Hi, this is Michelle. Today I'm in the greenhouse and I thought I could just do a quick update on some of my plants in here. I've had the greenhouse for about 1.5 months now, and I moved a lot of my plants that were spread around the house inside before that into the greenhouse around that time. Some of them are looking a bit worse for wear. The backstory to that is that towards the end of the year, which is coming into our summer, which is quite hot, I was waiting for surgery and I was quite unwell in that time. And coinciding with that, my family was away and my partner was working quite long hours, so I was really having trouble keeping up with the watering needs of my plants at the time. So a couple of them, lost some leaves, were quite dehydrated and are not doing too well. A lot of them are recovering really well now they're in the greenhouse though, and I'm able to water them more easily. It's a lot easier to water here because I don't have to, carry things back and forth, empty trays, because the excess water can just, spill on the ground. During that time, a couple of the Alocasias in particular, which tend to be a little bit sensitive compared to your philodendrons and that kind of thing, a couple of them got way too dry and went fully dormant even though it's summer. Like for instance, that magnificent specimen in the middle there, which was a variegated Alocasia macrorrhizos. It's still alive. I've checked the rhizome and it should eventually come back when it's ready. I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, it was quite a young one as well, and I find with Alocasias especially, the younger and smaller the plant, the more likely it is to go dormant if conditions don't match its liking for too long. So yeah, I find the bigger, more established plants much more resilient to if the temperature drops too low or they don't get watered enough. I guess they've got more stores in the rhizome to live off. So there were a couple over here. I'll look at my larger ones. So first up, we've got this one. It's it was sold to me as an Alocasia Shockwave. I've also seen it sold as shock treatment. I'm not 100% sure what exactly the scientific name for it is. I believe it's a mutant of a species with the, curled kind of mutated leaves. I think it's quite pretty. I once asked a question on a Facebook group about this particular plant, trying to work out, what it was a cultivar of, the exact, species. And a guy posted a comment that was like, "Who cares? It's objectively ugly." I'm like, okay, that's nice for you. I don't agree, but not the advice I was looking for, but that's fine. But yeah, this one, whatever it is actually kind of my most resilient plant. I don't know if that's because it's bigger or it's just, more resilient because of what species it is or something. But yeah, it gets down to like 15 Celsius or lower a few times, and it hasn't even, it never really drops leaves or anything. Keeps growing bigger and bigger leaves. Since I've moved it to the greenhouse, the leaves have got even bigger than they were before. So for instance, this, it hasn't got any of the really small leaves left, other than the kind of dead one, but you can kind of see how the size that was, and that was around the size when I got the plant. And then it, grew successively bigger and bigger leaves. The new leaves, of course, are coming from the middle. So yeah, you can see that since I've moved it to the greenhouse, the last couple of leaves are, and this developing one are a lot bigger. So yeah, it seems to really enjoy it in here. And as you can see, because it's a more established plant, it holds a lot more leaves than often the younger Alocasias can hold at one time. Usually they'll get a couple of leaves and then kill off the oldest leaf to make way for newer, bigger leaves that are better for photosynthesis. So yeah, that's probably the one that is showing a lot of, because it grows very fast, showing a lot of new vitality from being in the greenhouse. This other one in particular, the Alocasia zebrina Sarian, it's got some nice new large leaves coming through here, which is particularly exciting because it wasn't doing too well. Like only in the last week or so I've noticed that it's shown a lot of improvement. So you see these little leaves here. When I got it, the leaves were quite were not this size. This is the biggest leaf it has, but probably around this size. And it was doing well for a little while, but then when it was inside, I guess because I was underwatering and it got stressed, and these, when they're a little bit stressed or underwatered, they attract bugs like nobody's business. So I noticed some mealybugs which were right in the stems, and you know how the newest leaf comes from the previous leaf and then it kind of has the sheath there. The mealybugs were all kind of right down in the sheaths, and at the time, because I wasn't feeling well and coping, I did a bit of a silly thing and I freaked out and I was like, I can't deal with mealybugs, got to get them all out. So I repot the plant, which wasn't the big mistake, but I also wasn't sure I'd gotten all the mealybugs out, so I actually cut all but one, the newest leaf, off to try and make sure there were none in the sheaths. Pretty much the plant cracked it. It did not like me cutting all its leaves off, which can't really blame it. So then the next leaf it put out after I did that was this tiny little leaf, just to show me that it wasn't happy with me. This one is not that much bigger, and it also it's way over potted, and I find that's you often hear people tell you that's the worst thing you can do, just don't do it, but at the time I had no new pot that was kind of between the size of the pot that it was in, where it was like the roots had filled the whole pot, and I didn't have any bigger size other than this huge kind of pot here. So I put it in here because I wasn't up to going out to get another pot, and I was like, hopefully it'll be okay. And for a long time it was really wobbly and wouldn't stand up at all, but it's actually, now I've noticed, standing up completely by itself, and it's putting out much larger leaves, and I think that's because it's now getting a lot more warmth because it's in the greenhouse and I can keep it warmer in here, and also a lot more light. So in this situation it seems overpotting hasn't bothered it at all. I just make sure it still dries out a fair bit before I water it. I don't let it dry out completely in the summer at least, because they'll get kind of upset if you do that, at least in my situation. But yeah, a lot of the problems I see people talking about with these are often to do with, in my opinion, a lack of light and warmth. So they will go dormant, or put out smaller leaves, or get really, really long attenuated stems that can't actually hold up the weight of the leaves if they're not getting enough light. And a lot of people, the time when you try and grow them in the house, they're not getting enough light, because yeah, they can take quite a lot of light compared to something like a philodendron, and they prefer that kind of growth. So if you have one that's not doing as well, I would suggest trying to give it some more light, move it a bit closer to the window, that kind of thing. In winter I actually was letting mine, when they were inside, get some direct sunlight. In summer I wouldn't recommend that, at least not in Australia. I don't know what the sun strength is like in other countries. It might be fine, but you want to gradually acclimatize them to more light if you're doing that. So yeah, I'm really happy to see this one thriving. It's looking quite good. just a couple of others, some just general tips for growing these. One thing I find is they'll grow okay with lower humidity, but the one problem I've noticed you get when the humidity is a bit low is spider mites will just appear and kind of ravage entire plants very quickly. So any stress in Alocasia will attract spider mites. So you just want to kind of be aware of that and keep a lookout. I don't have any spider mite problems at the moment. I've had them in the past, but it was always when the plants were a bit stressed, not getting enough light, being underwatered. For a while I had, underwatering problems with these when I first got them, mostly because compared to I was growing a lot of succulents, Hoyas, that kind of thing, and quite concerned about overwatering. So like I may have leaned a little bit too much towards the dry side, so they would, completely flop before I watered them, and that kind of stress, attracted spider mites. I have one because it's been so hot over the last week that has completely flopped. Today it should be fine though. Just to show you what that looks like. So yeah, this is kind of my dragon scale. It's usually quite a robust, healthy plant, but you can see that even though it has strong stems that can hold up the leaves, it has, flopped down. They're kind of all hanging down. But yeah, it'll be okay. I've just watered it, and I'll pour that out in about an hour once I'm sure it's got enough, and then within a few hours it should be sitting up nicely again. Yeah, that was a leaf that it got caught kind of against the other stems when it was trying to come out, because it was like a secondary direction of growth, and yeah, I couldn't get it out at all for ages other than pulling it, and by then it had kind of got a bit mutated. We also have green velvet here, who is looking pretty good. Got a new leaf coming out. Got a couple of variegated macrorrhizos. These aren't as variegated as the little one that went dormant. I've got, oh yeah, this is Ivory Coast, which is, another one I find pretty easy to grow. It seems to grow in a much more clumping pattern than a lot of the other ones I've got. Regular zebrina here with a new leaf coming. This is, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Alocasia or something like that. When I got this, it had no leaves because I kind of did the cheap thing and bought it as from the dying discount section in the winter when it had gone dormant from being left too cold. And yeah, for in the last 2 months it's grown all those leaves and come back from the bulb. So yeah, I've got a couple more out here as well. This one was sold as Alocasia Corazon. I'll put up the actual, what I've been told is the correct name for it. But this one has a really beautiful kind of jewel leaves when they're newer. These are a bit, dusty because of the neglect, but it should put out a new leaf soon. Little bambino. This one's a relative. It's not actually an Alocasia, but this one also just been watered. This one, Amazonica dwarf type, and the wentii that I got as a little, it has nice red undersides usually, but this one was like a little kind of tube stock plant I got for a few bucks at Bunnings, which is like a hardware kind of store that's just, settling in. So yeah, that's probably all for today. Thanks very much for watching. I hope it was somewhat helpful. See you next time.